but one of the whole mammoth brood still kept his sovereignty and rule and majesty. Blazing Hyperion on his orbed fire still sat, still snuffed the incense, teeming up from man to the sun's god, yet unsecure. For as among us mortals omens drear fright and perplex, so also shuddered he, not at dog's howl or gloombird's hated screech, or the familiar visiting of one upon the first toll of its passing bell, or prophesyings of the midnight lamp, but horrors, portion to a giant nerve, oft made Hyperion ache. His palace bright, bastioned with pyramids of glowing gold, and touched with shade of bronzed obelisks, glared a blood red through all its 1,000 courts, arches, and domes, and fiery galleries, and all its curtains of Aurorian clouds flushed angrily, while sometimes eagles' wings, unseen before by gods or wondering men, darkened the place, and neighing steeds were heard, not heard before by gods or wondering men. Also, when he would taste the spicy wreaths of incense breathed aloft from sacred hills, instead of sweets, his ample palate took savour of poisonous brass and metal sick. And so, when harboured in the sleepy west, after the full completion of fair day, for rest divine upon exalted couch, and slumber in the arms of melody, he paced away the pleasant hours of ease with stride colossal, on from hall to hall, while far within each aisle and deep recess his winged minions in close clusters stood, amazed and full of fear, like anxious men who on wide plains gather in panting troops when earthquakes jar their battlements and towers. Even now, while Saturn, raised from icy trance, went step for step with Thea through the woods, Hyperion, leaving twilight in the rear, came slope upon the threshold of the west. Then, as was wont, his palace door flew ope in smothered silence, save what solemn tubes, blown by the serious zephyrs, gave of sweet and wandering sounds, slow-breathed melodies. And like a rose in vermeil tint and shape, in fragrance soft and coolness to the eye, that inlet to severe magnificence stood full blown for the god to enter in. He entered, but he entered full of wrath. His flaming robe streamed out beyond his heels and gave a roar as if of earthly fire, that scared away the meek ethereal hours and made their dove wings tremble. On he flared from stately nave to nave, from vault to vault, through bowers of fragrant and enwreathed light and diamond-paved lustrous long arcades, until he reached the great main cupola. There, standing fierce beneath, he stamped his foot, and from the basement, deep to the high towers, jarred his own golden region, and before the quavering thunder thereupon had ceased, his voice leapt out, despite of godlike curb, to this result. O dreams of day and night, O monstrous forms, O effigies of pain, O spectres busy in a cold, cold gloom, O lank-eared phantoms of black-weeded pools, why do I know ye? Why have I seen ye? Why is my eternal essence thus distraught to see and to behold these
horrors new. Saturn is fallen. Am I too to fall? Am I to leave this haven of my rest, this cradle of my glory, this soft clime, this calm luxuriance of blissful light, these crystalline pavilions and pure fanes of all my lucent empire? It is left deserted, void, nor any haunt of mine. The blaze, the splendor, and the symmetry I cannot see, but darkness, death, and darkness. Even here, into my center of repose, the shady visions come to domineer, insult and blind, and stifle up my pomp. Fall? No. By Tellus send her briny robes. Over the fiery frontier of my realms I will advance, a terrible right arm shall scare that infant thunderer, rebel Jove, and bid old Saturn take his throne again.
He spake, and sensed, the while a heavier threat held struggle with his throat, but came not forth. For as in theatres of crowded men, hubbub increases, more they call out, hush! So at Hyperion's words the phantoms pale bestirred themselves, thrice horrible and cold. And from the mirrored level where he stood a mist arose as from a scummy marsh. At this, through all his bulk, an agony crept, gradual, from the feet unto the crown, like a lithe serpent vast and muscular making slow way, with head and neck convulsed from overstrained might. Released, he fled to the eastern gates, and full 6 dewy hours before the dawn in season dew should blush, he breathed fierce breath against the sleepy portals, cleared them of heavy vapours, burst them wide suddenly on the ocean's chilly streams. The planet orb of fire, whereon he rode each day from east to west the heavens through, spun round in sable curtaining of clouds. Not therefore veiled quiet, blindfold and hid, but ever and anon the glancing spheres, circles and arcs, and broad-belting colour glowed through and wrought upon the muffling dark, sweet-shaped lightnings from the nadir deep up to the zenith hieroglyphics old, which sages and keen-eyed astrologers then living on the earth, with labouring thought, won from the gaze of many centuries, now lost, save what we find on remnants huge, of stone, of marble swart, their import gone, their wisdom long since fled. 2 wings this orb possessed for glory, 2 fair argent wings, ever exalted at the god's approach. And now, from forth the gloom their plumes immense rose one by one, till all outspreaded were, while still the dazzling globe maintained eclipse, awaiting for Hyperion's command. Fain would he have commanded, fain took throne and bid the day begin, if but for change. He might not, no. Though a primeval god, the sacred seasons might not be disturbed. Therefore the operations of the dawn stayed in their birth, even as here 'tis told. Those silver wings expanded sisterly, eager to sail their orb, the porches wide opened upon the dusk domains of night, and the bright Titan, frenzied with new woes, unused to bend, by hard compulsion bent his spirit to the sorrow of the time. And all along a dismal rack of clouds, upon the boundaries of day and night, he stretched himself in grief and radiance faint. There as he lay, The heaven with its stars looked down on him with pity, and the voice of Celis from the universal space thus whispered low and solemn in his ear.
O brightest of my children dear, earth-born and sky-engendered, son of mysteries, all unrevealed even to the powers which met at thy creating, at whose joys and palpitations sweet and pleasures soft, I, Celis, wonder how they came and whence, and at the fruits thereof what shapes they be, distinct and visible, symbols divine, manifestations of that beauteous life, diffused unseen throughout eternal space. Of these new-formed art, thou, O brightest child, of these thy brethren and the goddesses, there is sad feud among ye, and rebellion of son against his sire. I saw him fall, I saw my firstborn tumbled from his throne. To me his arms were spread, to me his voice found way from forth the thunders round his head. Pale wax I, and in vapours hid my face. Art thou, too, near such doom? Vague fear there is, for I have seen my sons most unlike gods. Divine ye were created, and divine in sad demeanour, solemn, undisturbed, unruffled, like high gods ye lived and ruled. Now I behold in you fear, hope, and wrath, actions of rage and passion, even as I see them on the mortal world beneath in men who die. This is the grief, O son, sad sign of ruin, sudden dismay and fall. Yet do thou strive, as thou art capable, as thou canst move about, an evident God, and canst oppose to each malignant hour ethereal presence. I am but a voice. My life is but the life of winds and tides. No more than winds and tides can I avail. But thou canst. Be thou therefore in the van of circumstance. Yea, seize the arrow's barbs before the tenth string murmur. To the earth, for thou wilt find Saturn and his woes. Meantime I will keep watch on thy bright sun, and of thy seasons be a careful nurse.
Ere half this region whisper had come down, Hyperion arose, and on the stars lifted his curved lids and kept them wide until it ceased, and still he kept them wide, and still they were the same bright, patient stars. Then with a slow incline of his broad breast, like to a diver in the pearly seas, forward he stooped over the airy shore and plunged all noiseless into the deep night.